This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming video service Nebula when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. Jingle jangle, jingle jangle. That's not gonna get annoying throughout the video. You know, the world of comics and comics creators is an imaginative one that sometimes predicts the future. From Dick Tracy predicting the smartwatch to Superman accidentally predicting the atomic bomb while the Manhattan Project was underway. Made a video about that one if you wanna go check it out. But today, I'd like to tell you the story of how a Spider-Man newspaper comic strip inspired the creation of all things, ankle monitors. Yeah, that clunky device often used to make sure that people on house arrest stay at home. That was introduced thanks to the ol' webhead. And you might be thinking, you know, this might have to do with Spider-Man's spider tracers, keeping tabs on criminals. But actually, the credit goes not to Spider-Man, but to one of his most famous villains.
It all becomes clear now. You need my technology.
Exactly.
How are you doing, you wonderful nerds? Scott here, and I have an entire snow globe on my sweater. That's fun. So here's the thing, I actually wrote the script for this video like 3 years ago and never recorded it. And now, by some strange twist of fate, Spider-Man, Kingpin, and mid-20th century juvenile delinquents are all trending topics right now, at a time when most of us now have a greater understanding of what it's like not being able to leave our homes. The stars have aligned, for better or worse, and I am going to capitalize on it.
Isn't life full of surprises?
So before ankle monitors were ankle monitors, they were actually belts. I like to imagine them as futuristic fanny packs. During the 1960s, twin brothers Robert and Ralph Kirkland Gable ran a behavioral experiment that aimed to help juvenile offenders. Instead of merely punishing these troubled youths for committing small crimes, what if you gave them little rewards for when they kept out of trouble? Some positive reinforcement as a treat, as an alternative to jail time. And that is what these fanny packs aimed to do. The Gable twins would create a schedule for their subjects on probation. They'd slap a belt on them with a tracking beacon made from old radio equipment, and then monitor the kids. If they stuck to their schedule like they were told to do and stayed away from places that might encourage criminal behavior, like seedy pool halls or stoops of singing gang members, they would be rewarded for keeping on the straight and narrow with pizza and free haircuts, probably not at the same time, one would hope. In other words, the Gable twins thought that only punishing criminal behavior probably wouldn't do much once the person is out of jail. Some may find it easier to fall back into a life of crime, but encouraging good behavior, I got all tangled up in my sweater, encouraging good behavior, the Gable twins thought, could help reduce recidivism. That's what these tracking belts were for initially. Not trapping people under house arrest, but monitoring and rewarding them as they stayed out of trouble. Yeah, rather than addressing any of the many systemic and economic reasons why crime might be happening in the first place, the Gables wanted to put a band-aid over it in the form of pizza parties. I have to imagine it worked, and there's no crime anymore. Their experiments had mixed results, but they ran into a limitation of the technology that forced them to stop. Since the belts worked via radio signals, monitoring large groups of people proved to be too big of a task for the technology at the time. So the tracking belts were put on hold. Until a couple of decades later, when a judge woke up one hot New Mexico morning, sat at the breakfast table, and flipped open the newspaper to read about the adventures of Spider-Man.
Did you ever want to do a comic strip for a newspaper?
All the time. I finally got the chance. I wanted to do Spider-Man. In fact, the syndicates asked me to do Spider-Man, but I couldn't figure out how to do it.
For some context, by 1977, nearly 15 years after the Friendly Neighborhood webhead had risen to massive popularity at Marvel Comics, co-creator Stan Lee finally achieved his oddly specific dream of creating a Spider-Man comic strip for the newspaper with artist John Romita Sr.
It took until I could figure out a way to do it. Years later, in 1977, we started Spider-Man for King Features, and I'm happy to say he's still going.
And thankfully, they've been collected in book form, and they're very fun. And one of their first stories for this strip involved the villainous Kingpin converting his life of crime to a life of politics. Wilson Fisk plans to run for mayor of New York on, ironically enough, an anti-crime campaign.
It's important that I convince the press that I'm public-spirited.
And to sway the voters, he needs the support of the Big Apple's favorite web-swinging superhero. But, you know, since there's obviously no way that Spider-Man would actually legitimately support Wilson Fisk on his own accord, Kingpin naturally kidnaps the hero, which is a bit of a rocky start for your anti-crime campaign. Fisk pitches his idea of a political alliance to Spider-Man, who, weirdly enough, open-mindedly sort of agrees to at least consider it. Kingpin gives Spidey an hour to think over his decision, and to up the ante, the villain's goons corner the webhead as Kingpin quickly slaps a tracking bracelet on Spidey's wrist. He explains, "That oversized ID bracelet is an electronic radar device, which will allow me to zero in on your location whenever I wish. Even your awesome power cannot remove it. Nothing can, except my hidden laser key." I tried to get Vincent D'Onofrio to do that quote for me, but he's busy. This device allowed Fisk to monitor Spider-Man's exact location and even administer electric shocks if the hero tried to fight back. Now, obviously, Spidey eventually gets free of his constraints and brings Kingpin's campaign to a halt, but it was this story about a figure claiming to be against crime and fashioning a wearable device to keep tabs on a young punk teenager that would make an unexpected impact on one New Mexico judge, Jack Love. Actually, that sounds incredibly expected when you put it into those exact words. In 1983, by complete happenstance, Judge Love's eyes wandered across this newspaper comic strip one morning, and he was struck with an idea. Crime rates were rising and prisons were overcrowded. It would be helpful if, instead of jailing nonviolent offenders, you could just fashion one of these comic book trackers to keep an eye on them outside of prison. Now, often this would mean offenders would be sequestered to their homes, unable to leave without triggering the device and alerting authorities. Judge Love pitched this idea to engineer and salesman Michael T. Goss, who would found the National Incarceration Monitoring and Control Services. They basically built upon the work that was pioneered by the Gable twins, turning their tracking fanny packs into ankle monitors that were smaller and more reliable thanks to technological advancements at the time, eventually even upgrading to GPS technology still in use today. The only thing they didn't keep from the Gables was this idea of rewarding pro-social, non-criminal behavior. The initial goal, after all, was not just to punish offenders, but to reduce the chances that they'd commit more criminal acts in the future. Which is why it's somewhat fitting that this kind of tracking device was popularized thanks in no small part to the criminal mind of Wilson Fisk. Because the lure of free haircuts doesn't work on us bald people, so without the free pizza, there's nothing to stop us from doing all of our crimes.
He reminds me of myself as a young man.
Incriminating evidence aside, I mentioned at the start that I wanted to make this video because I felt all of the topics aligned well with YouTube's algorithm right now. Having to bend to the will of YouTube's mysterious ones and zeros is incredibly annoying, which is why my creator friends and I teamed up to create our own platform where we don't have to worry about algorithms or demonetization. It's called Nebula, and we are thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream. Nebula is a place where creators are actually allowed to be creative, posting our videos ad-free, sometimes extended versions with more content, and experimenting with different topics and video formats that might not work on YouTube. In fact, over on Nebula, this entire ad spot is replaced with bonus content of me talking about how much of this script I had to change since I wrote it 3 years ago, and sort of reflecting on how far I've come as a creator as we wind down this year. So this specific video idea is something that I've wanted to make for a really long time, but I think the reason why I didn't, the reason that stopped me from making it, was Nebula has tons of YouTube's top educational creators. My favorites like Lindsay Ellis, Legal Eagle, Patrick Willems, Sarah Zed, Nando V Movies, and genuinely so many more, including me. I'm on there. But what does this have to do with CuriosityStream? Well, since CuriosityStream is the #1 place for thousands of documentaries and nonfiction titles on the internet, they obviously love educational content and supporting educational creators. So we worked out a deal where if you sign up with the link below, not only do you get access to CuriosityStream, but you'll also get Nebula for free. Not a free trial, mind you. You get all of Nebula for free as long as you're a CuriosityStream member. For today only, CuriosityStream is offering a special holiday discount of 42% off of their annual plan. That is less than $12 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. It is simply the best deal in streaming, and it makes a great gift for any curious learner in your life who might want to know more about the comic book industry, with documentaries like My Comic Book Country that explores the lives of people fighting to keep comic book shops open. And if you're watching this after December 24th, don't worry, you still get a fantastic deal, 26% off of a CuriosityStream annual plan. And it still includes Nebula for free. I mean, even at that rate, it's still less than $15 a year, and it supports my channel and educational content as a whole. So click the link below today to get both CuriosityStream and Nebula for just $11.59 per year. That's 42% off. And again, that specific deal is just for today, so you gotta jump on it. Once again, click the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/nerdsync. Clicking that link really does help my channel. A little bit of a shorter video today, but that's because I made a nearly hour-long Spider-Man video just last week all about why Peter Parker used to suck in his early comics. Go check that out. And hey, here's my entire Spider-Man playlist for you. Once again, my name is Scott, reminding you to examine your favorite art through curiosity and vulnerability. See ya.